Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, and I've got such a cool guest today with Viktor Krauss. I'm really fortunate in having this show that I get to come into contact with just first-class musicians, and Viktor's one of those guys for sure. Not only is he a first-call session player out of Nashville, which in and of itself says something, but he's got four albums or five, four albums, right?
Well, actually, two solo records, and then there was a duet record that I did with
The harp.
Maeve. Yes.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
And he's an awesome
modular record. Yeah.
He's an awesome. Let's see, I got here. Far From Enough, Viktor Krauss 2, and Modular. Yeah, as an EP.
Yeah.
He's an awesome artist in addition to being a great session player. Quickly, let me give you his background and we'll get started. And I just want to thank our mutual friend, Jim Oblon. Jim, you're the man. Thanks very much for connecting us as always. I appreciate your support and friendship. Viktor's a well-known first call session and touring bassist out of Nashville. He has over 500 album credits as either a bassist, composer, or producer. He's recorded or toured with Lyle Lovett. He's been Lyle's bass player since 1994. Bill Frisell, James Taylor, Sheryl Crow, Robert Plant, his sister Alison Krauss, Buddy Miller, Tom Jones, Shawn Colvin, Carly Simon, Jerry Douglas, Chet Atkins, Larry Carlton. He doesn't mess around. Listen to these names. The Chieftains, Peter Rowan, Harry Connick Jr., J.D. Souther. I never knew how to pronounce it. Is it Souther or Souther?
Souther.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joan Baez, the Indigo Girls. Man, I had this is from the Indigo Girls. This is what happens. I had too many guests. Amy.
Yeah.
Right. She was funny as hell. We had her here on the show. Dolly Parton, Graham Nash, Michael McDonald, John Fogerty, Elvis Costello, Kenny Rogers, and tons of others. He's released 2 records and 2 EPs that he played multiple instruments on besides bass, along with band members and supporting members on there. Bill Frisell, Jerry Douglas, Steve Jordan, again, his sister Allison, Dean Parks, Matt Chamberlain, and Maeve Gilchrist, who is, as he said, amazing harp player, and others. He's got film composing credits, including music for directors Ken Burns and the late Robert Altman, and his original compositions from his solo recordings are used daily as musical bumpers for NPR in between programs. That was probably a cool surprise.
Yeah. You don't know when it's going to come on, and mostly it's people that have heard the records that can say, "Hey, did you hear that?" And it's a honorable thing to.
Yeah, really cool.
I never stumble upon.
I will tell you this: if you want to get buried in some really deep and beautiful musical experiences, check out Viktor's album called 2 and the album he did with Maeve Gilchrist. Not that the other records aren't great, but I mean, those are the first 2 I listened to, and they're really great stuff. All right, man. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate your time. Sorry for that disjointed and broken introduction, man.
No, it's fine.
All right. So you started in music playing trumpet and piano. I was curious, how'd you first get into playing? And I assume with you and your sister both being professional musicians that you came from a musical family?
Well, it's funny that they dabbled in music, but my mom is a visual artist, and she played some instruments growing up, like in high school and a little bit in college. And then my dad always would sing around the house, but never had any kind of formal musical training, and he ended up being connected with the University of Illinois opera productions during that time period, usually in the chorus. But
right.
But that was really neat, and what they both did for my sister and I was they at age 5 asked us what instruments we wanted to play, and not knowing that you have really a choice in the matter, you kind of just pick ones. And I started on piano, and she started on violin, and continued to play piano. But then I saw somebody playing trumpet, or just liked the sound of it, and kind of messed around with that for a little while, like I guess in 5th grade, and saw somebody playing double bass, string bass in the school orchestra, and most of the time, at that time when you're in middle school, you see tons and tons of violins, maybe a viola, and a few cellos, and there was one lone bass bassist in the middle, and I just was kind of taken by it, just seeing, wow, that's a spectacle. And
I mean, just the majestic
yeah,
presence of the instrument itself.
Yeah, it just looked, it just kind of drew me in that way. And then when you heard it play, and then suddenly you've got this low end rumble that's happening that none of the other instruments could have. It just I just became really, really interested in it. And yeah.
And how old you're in middle school then, you said? So what?
Yeah, 13? I think it was maybe 6th grade. So that would have been
like 12 or something?
Yeah, probably 12.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And it was funny, and my sister was doing contest fiddle. This fiddle contest was a regional thing in Illinois, and pretty much all over the country. It's a real
it's a
competition.
Definitely.
And my mom was accompanying her a lot of the time on guitar, and I thought, well, maybe this would be fun to play bass on that. So it was kind of nice. It was something that I could kind of join in right away and just listen for the chords. There was never anything written, so a lot of the time I was just listening. And but I just immediately fell in love with it and just kind of was glued to it. From when I decided to play, I said, well, okay, this feels like my instrument. I love music. I love listening to music, but this feels like this is something that was really speaking to me right away.
Yeah. Are you a big guy? Because that's a big ass instrument.
No. I mean, I'm just a little over 6 feet, and
yeah.
And, I mean, I was kind of tall for that. For when I, at 11 or 12, I was already kind of tall.
Right. At 6 feet tall, like I'm only like 5'9". I couldn't see me playing on that double bass. Yeah, it just looks more appropriate. Like I had Ron Carter on the show. He looks like that's the guy should be playing double bass.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did you first get started in the music business, and like what was your first break?
Well, I mean, all along, I mean, I grew up in Champaign, Illinois, and that really did have a nice kind of scene in terms of players, and being a university town, there were a lot of really good musicians and an appreciation for music. So at that time period, this would have been in the 70s, 80s, 90s for me, just where you could get music anywhere. And I started to play a little bit professionally in Champaign, but I would say, really when I became a professional is when I probably made the move to Nashville in 1992. And I actually had done, my sister's career was taking off quite a bit at that time. And I did essentially do a few months with her in what was called Union Station. There were different incarnations prior to me being there, but I did it for a little while, but also kind of wanted to finish college at the same time. And but then I ended up moving to Nashville, and probably my first professional break was with me getting a gig with Peter Rowan, and which was really fun.
That's a pretty good first gig, man.
Yeah, it was. I had said that I was interested in working with him. He came out to a show. When I first moved to Nashville, I would join my sister on some tours just for fun. Right. And she'd have me come up and play on a couple songs. And, he heard me play, that it wasn't, maybe a terrible idea to have me play with him some. And so I ended up kind of working with him for, I would say maybe about a year and a half. And that really was, it was a cool gig to have, because my background had been, some bluegrass, some, a lot of jazz, but also rock. And, Peter is kind of, he's kind of a chameleon, it's whatever kind of is happening in his mind that it, that it could kind of cross pollinate in genres. And so it was a really fun fit. And it kind of got me introduced to introduced me to, people like Jerry Douglas on a, I knew Jerry, but I got to play with him in that configuration, and Sam Bush, and just some very, respected people.
Big time. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I thought maybe another gig that kind of got me into more into the scene in Nashville. I did a tour with Shelby Lynn, who had recently done a record that was kind of cross between big band and country music. And that was probably one of the first kind of bus tours and what you think of as a Nashville tour.
Right.
I don't know. It was somebody who had said early on, Rich Adler, who was a great, who is a great engineer, and he said something kind of true. He said, if you move to Nashville, it really takes about 2 years for to make contacts that are outside of the people that you already know.
Right.
And I thought that was true, because most of the time the people that moved, I kind of worked within that circle, and then it started to really kind of expand from that point. And then I guess maybe I would say really the gig with Lyle Lovett was a very significant break for me, because that went, he was, and he still is, but that was probably the most time. This would have been 94, where there was probably the most Hollywood interest, and
right.
So it was that was a feat for me, and very exciting for me to get that gig.
How did you get that gig?
Well, I just kind of bothered people that were in his network.
Oh, you wanted to play with him?
Yeah, I did. I wanted to play with him. I had heard Lyle Lovett and his large band record, which came out in '88, years ago, and hearing that, I was just thinking, this is really cool. And I was doing a lot of big band. Playing in the U of I big band, and lots of jazz, and I said, well, wow, what a cool mixture of all that. And so I for a long time really wanted that gig, and I said, boy, if I lived in Nashville, or if I had a career that got bigger outside of what's happening at that time period, I thought this would be something I'd love to have happen. So I ended up pursuing his management team from different angles, and just let it be known that I really wanted to do it. And I was having a particularly lean summer, and this was like it was in '94.
Okay.
And I called his manager, Ken Levitan, earlier that year. I says, well, if you ever need a bass player, I'd love to do it. So again, I was having this kind of very dry summer, and I called him just out of curiosity, or just to kind of check in, even if he had anything else happening. I said, well, this is Viktor Krauss, and before I even finished the sentence, he says, oh, Lyle may need a bass player for this upcoming tour. And
my God.
Yeah. So this was the I Love Everybody record, which was a very demanding upright bass record. It was pretty much a trio record between Lyle, Russ Kunkel, and great bass player John Leftwich, and then string sections. God,
Russ Kunkel is everywhere, man.
Yeah. And so to make a long story short, I ended up getting the gig after about I guess about a month of kind of back and forth of showing that I was interested. He wanted to meet me first, and so I never had a rehearsal with him. And there were select people that had kind of heard me in the right places, like Tony Brown, and other people that could vouch for me, saying that, okay, well, this would probably be a good fit. And so yeah, I never rehearsed with him, and pretty much he wanted me to kind of transition from the bass player that he had beforehand. So so I got on the gig, toured, and then we kind of morphed into me doing it after
Right.
about a week, and then yeah, it's pretty much kind of stuck.
Okay.
From there.
Hang on, it's dropped my pen. I got a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
What made you move to Nashville in the first place in 92?
Well, you know, it was funny. It was mainly because I kind of thought of it, you know, I went on a couple of tours just for fun with my sister, you know, not playing.
Oh,
but
just to hang.
Just to hang. And I was like, well, this is pleasant. This is kind of fun.
Yeah.
And
God, you probably saw such great musicians too.
yeah. And you know,
Here goes, man. Here goes. We could set the clock by this. Every time I do an interview, these guys show up to do my yard. Sorry, it won't be long.
Oh no, that's okay.
Sorry.
So you know, so I was seeing, you know, just it was a fun scene, and you know, and I had just finished college. I was in a rock band called Difficult Listening, which was
That's a good name.
really fun, and but I was kind of thinking, you know, what do I really want to do? I had during college, I started off as a bass performance major,
Okay.
classical bass, and I didn't really love that. I kind of within the first semester, I knew that I was not going to be an orchestral bassist, and I ended up switching into music composition, theory composition, and then also kind of had a moment of being disillusioned with that, and I switched into finance. And
wow,
yeah, and
that's interesting.
Yeah, so I kind of was interested in that because my dad's business was real estate, and there was some elements of just the numbers and being smart with money that was kind of fascinating to me. But at that point, I was kind of starting to think, well, I probably do want to make a go out of playing music professionally. So I decided to switch back into composition, and I ended up finishing that, and then played for a while in Champaign, and then you know, wanted to make some kind of professional move where it seemed to make sense.
Right.
And I wasn't necessarily a big country guy. You know, I kind of think of myself as a jazz or rock guy.
Right.
But I did like the idea, no matter what it was, that there would be a collective of musicians that really knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And you know, in Nashville, Illinois, was drivable, and yeah, and I have a lot of the time even considered Los Angeles too, you know, just musically as well. But Nashville has always kind of been, it seemed like it's still a town, and it's maybe not quite as, at that point, it wasn't quite as intense.
Sure. Well, it's still much more of a town than LA is.
Yeah.
As much as it's grown, for sure.
Mm.
The other thing I wanted to ask you is, I give you so much credit for going out, and as you said, I was bothering people in this network, but like very few people do that. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was kind of driven. I mean, like I feel like, you know, since before having kids and a family, I think I was, you know, really kind of determined to make something work, or maybe, you know, driven to kind of start a career. And I guess I've always, if I feel like I really want something, that I do everything I can to not feel sorry that I didn't try.
Right. So even if it failed, like at least you'd have the satisfaction of knowing that, oh, you know, like you just said, I tried.
Yeah. I think I'd rather know that I tried something than going, oh, okay, well, you know, that's not going to work out, and then being guilty.
How else are they going to know you are interested?
Yeah.
You know, and it comes down to it, you know, like the guy his manager's not going to wake up one night and say, I had a dream that there's this bass player, and I think he'd probably be a good. I mean, that's just not going to happen, man.
Yeah.
And I think I really commend you, because I've talked to so many people that feel like awkward about doing stuff like that. But man, everybody is comfortable taking a phone call.
Yeah. Well, and everybody's flattered for the most part, even if it's, even if it's the most absurd idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the worst they can say is no. And then.
Right. I mean, yeah. Right. Yeah. I give you credit though, because it's not a very intuitive thing for musicians to do. And I understand it. And the vulnerability of being rejected isn't, a lot of people have a hard time with that, but man, I'd rather get rejected 50 times and then get the one that I wanted on 51, because that could change did change your life.
Yeah. Wasn't it like J.K. Rowling with Harry Potter got rejected so many times until.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the Colonel, Kentucky Fried Chicken, there's the same story with him. He was like in his 60s, came up with the recipe, and he went everywhere and he got rejected all the time. Yeah. It's interesting to hear that stuff. Okay. Once you started with Lyle, how did you segue over into sessions after that?
Well, some of that was kind of happening at the same time. I don't know, sessions are interesting for me, a lot of the time, I mean, and it's true, a lot of the time people are thought of either they tour or they stay in town. And I think there's some truth to that. Like a lot of the time, if I've gone out of town for 2 months, I have to remind people that I didn't die.
Right.
So, so it's a lot of the time you kind of build up one thing and you start to get momentum, and then you go on tour, and then you have to kind of start all over again. But a lot of the time, and for me, it's kind of gone in waves. Like certain years, I kind of think of myself as flavor of the month, and then and then somebody else gets popular, and then comes back to me or to someone else. I don't know. It's just like you get it always kind of, it's networking. You play well on something else, somebody hears you on think, oh, I like that. Or over time, for me, I've never been. I don't know. I'm always, most of the time I'm hired for the big bass, for the upright versus the electric. And I love playing electric, but we've got so many choices here in Nashville, of people that do it better than you, or they bring one thing, you can just call that guy.
Right.
So, I think maybe over time I've become thought of as a specific flavor.
Yeah. Well, you are, man. I'm going to ask you about that in a minute, but the only other guy I know that's as versatile on upright is like Dave Rowe.
Oh yeah, he's wonderful.
But how did you? I was talking to you before we started. You play an upright bass like nobody I've ever heard. It's like, because I was like, I called Jim. I'm like, is this guy really playing upright? He goes, yeah. I said, well, how does he make a groove like that? He goes, that's his thing, man. He just How did you develop that style? It's so it grooves. It's not like, I had to get, I was really, is this upright? Is this electric? It's a real gift.
Oh, thank you. I like, I guess I like trying to get something on the big bass that you don't, I try to get a sound out of it that you don't miss the electric on it, to kind of, I guess, there's, boy, how do you explain this?
I don't know, because I don't know. I can't explain it. I'm listening to it. I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing this? I've never heard anything like that, man.
Well, I mean, I do. I'm a real. I had a traumatic experience as when I was first learning how to play bass in in middle school, and my first month or so playing. And I remember the song. It was a Sammy Nestico song called "Free Spirit." It was like a big band, kind of light big band, but slash easy listening. And I remember learning the bass part, and I was so proud of learning this bass part. And like I got all the parts, and like I felt like it was feeling good and everything. And in the show, the band director, after we play, comes over and tunes the bass for me after we've played this first song. And so I didn't think to tune it or anything like that, even though I played all the right notes and the rhythm and all that kind of stuff. I was so proud, and it just kind of like shot it all down, even though, I kind of learned how to play all this. So I've become such a stickler for being in tune all the time that I do everything that I possibly can to make sure that I'm going to hit the note square on,
Right.
Even if there's nuance with, playing a fretless instrument, but I want to make something that sounds so in tune. So a lot of the time I'm kind of choosing positions of the least resistance on the string. So, I mean, like, there are certain areas, like a noted B on the A string is going to sound different than a noted B on the E string.
Right.
The noted A string has the least amount of resistance. It's in the middle of the string. I mean, it's closer to the nut.
Yes.
So all the tones are a little brighter than if you're playing the B. But you're sacrificing a little bit of facility to choose one over the other. So it's convenience. But a lot of the time, I'm going to pick tone versus convenience. If that makes any sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense, because the best upright bass players I've spoken to all have, they may be articulating it differently, but tone is they're obsessed with tone on every given note. And it's not that guitar players aren't, but there's so many more notes that a guitarist is typically playing. It's hard to devote that much intensity to 4 or 5, 10 notes in the same space as a bass player with 2 or 3.
Yeah. So make them count.
Yeah.
Bit. And then there was kind of something where, I did start on upright, but then played electric at the same time. Maybe about a year later, started playing that, and knew what kind of starting to figure out what offers each, and there's certain things that that I like to play on the upright more than on the electric, but the electric is fun,
Right.
So it's kind of trying to develop a sound that would allow to kind of be both in some ways. Like playing what I've learned from electric bass on the upright, and vice versa. And then just also with the right hand technique, what sounds are you given with this area on your finger versus another area, or using as much of the length of your finger versus just the tips, and what offers there, or you might actually use your fourth finger for a different sound. Or the third, what did the second, what your index and your middle do differently, and their helpers are, I don't know. I mean, I'm getting into some.
No, I'm just like, because I didn't I'm thinking, holy crap, there's a lot of moving parts going on here.
Yeah.
And I never thought about, as I don't play bass, but I mean, I didn't realize that. There's a lot of decisions you got to make to go into each note there. I didn't realize.
Yeah. Well, and just also, like how, if I'm playing here, how high you go up on the right hand too will offer things. If you're at the edge of the fingerboard, I always teach, if I have students or anything, I always kind of compare it to having, being in the rhythm position versus the lead position.
The lead position. Yeah, that's cool.
So, like how far you go up and down, closer to the bridge or up, it will give you different sounds too, and that happens on electric, but it really does, you can think about that stuff on the upright.
Do you have like, I didn't realize that you use the whole of the finger, a good part of it. Is the whole of that finger calloused?
Yeah. Oh
It
yeah.
is.
Yeah. So if it's like, it's pretty much from here to up
Okay.
there in the, if I'm playing a show outside, usually you'll see it's like, and it's damp out, it'll be
Oh,
that line there.
yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, that's a great, when you play, it does kind of sound like an electric, it's an upright, but it kind of sounds like electric. This is what the confusing thing is when I'm listening to you, because it's really, it's a very unique sound. I've never heard anybody have that. Yeah. It's really cool. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, and I also used, I like a certain, taking advantage of a pickup on an upright bass too, just to, for a recorded sound that you use a little bit of a blend between the pickup and the microphone. I mean, the microphone is going to be a more true sound, but you'll get a quicker focus and a quicker note sometimes with the direct signal. So depending on what the engineer favors, a lot of the time, depending on the, that you'll get a lot of one or none of one, or I usually let the engineer kind of have their taste in there, but always when I'm tracking, I always like to have a lot of the DI so it helps me with pitch, and then it will give me that same kind of attack every time, and then people do what they want with it after.
You play guitar as well. Do you change? Are you one of these guys like changing pickups on guitars as well?
No, it's funny. I'm always scared to do any kind of soldering or anything like that.
You kind of know what you're doing. It's like, otherwise, it's like fixing your roof, man. There's a reason why there's people that do that for a living, and they're much better at it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm always scared to do that. Usually I just like, I'll figure out the guitar is wrong and trade it for something else.
Thanks. That's really, I was very interested in how you came up with that sound. It's very interesting, the thought process that goes in there, man. All right, I'm going to ask you about a few artists that you've played with, Viktor. Tell me how you connected with them and a cool or fun story about working with them.
Sure,
Let's start. Incredible guitar player is Bill Frisell.
Yeah, well, that happened by, it was funny. He was coming to do his Nashville record, which I guess was maybe 95 is when that was when the tracking was. I think it may have came out in 96. But there were a couple people that, so he was collecting players, and he was using a couple of people from my sister's band, Adam Steffi and Ron Block. And and it wasn't necessarily thought to have bass right away. But as I guess he was talking with Kyle Lenning, who is a great producer engineer that I've known for years, had mentioned me, and there were a couple other people that said that I might be a good fit because of who I'd played with, and having a jazz background as well as some bluegrass and country music, since that was kind of more of the focus of that album. And it was funny, I was talking to some of the guys. I got the call during one of the Lyle tours, and they were saying, "Oh, Bill Frisell,"
he's kind of revered.
Yeah, and and I ended up talking to him on the phone. He seemed very sweet, nice guy, and I remember being, coming to the studio, which was Sound Emporium, which was one of my favorite studios here in town. We got together, and it was a really small band that day, and we played one of these songs that didn't make the album, and I was just like, whoa, this is
He's a very
really special.
He's a very emotional player.
Yeah.
And
it was funny because it felt like there were no wrong answers to play. Like it was just like, it was so freeing that it was just like, okay, well, of course you would do this. Like, and yeah, that was just really, really special to me. Yeah.
I had Greg Leese on the show a while back, and he said something similar, like Bill is so. He said the same thing. He came in. He goes, "What do you want to play?" And he goes, "I don't have the." He goes, "I don't know that song or something like that. I don't have the music." He goes, "Oh, that's okay. You just play what you think sounds good."
Yeah, yeah.
Which has got to be wonderful for a musician on that gig.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was always there was parameters. And a lot of the time he would actually write out a bass part. But it always felt like, that you could kind of glide in, you could just kind of glide in along. And, he'd always have such great musicians with him that it was just like, okay, I can plug into this and this feels great.
That's cool. And you play double bass on that record?
Yeah.
Most of the time with him, you're playing double bass, as a matter of fact, right?
Yeah, I've never played anything other than
the
big bass.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then, it was kind of one of those things where I played with him and I really didn't want that to end. He has so many bands that, I haven't played with him regularly in some time, but there was a while where, we did a lot of stuff.
You did like 5 or 6 records in a row with him.
Yeah.
So I was looking him up. Yeah.
The Gone Just Like a Train record, which was, I think that maybe I love them all, but that one was really special to me with the trio with Jim Keltner. And yeah, that was, it's funny. I get probably more people that are music people or musicians that say, oh yeah, if they've known anything that I've done, they say, oh yeah, that record, that's kind of
the Gone Just Like a Train record.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to add that. I'm gonna listen to that this week. Robert Plant. Oh no,
Yeah.
tell me a funny story about working with Bill, or interesting story. Did you tour with him as well, or just studio?
Oh yeah.
That's
Yeah, we did some. And it was always kind of like little spurts of things, but it was we would.
But it's like all over, isn't it? He's not like, you're not touring like the southeastern states. You're going to like, Russia or something with him, aren't you?
Well, he does that, but
Yeah.
I haven't. I think the only thing that I did a couple European runs.
Okay.
And but never. I think we were just about ready to have our first child when there was an offer to go to Japan.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't do that one.
Sure, get you.
But boy, a funny story. I don't know. He's got a quirky sense of humor. You think he's shy, which he kind of is, but at the same time, there's kind of a silly side to him,
Right.
as well. Quirky and like funny drawings and
Did you see the movie? I think it's on Netflix, maybe.
I've seen part of it. Yeah,
It's pretty good. It's
yeah.
pretty good. He's so mellow, the guy.
Yeah,
He's ultra
Definitely.
mellow. Yeah.
But you could tell that there's like, even though he's speaking slowly or mellow, you can tell that there's like
Oh, that thing
50
is like,
paragraphs going on at the same time.
yeah, the smoke is coming out of his ear. He's
Yeah.
no, he's everything he says and does is deliberate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally opposite of mellow, or at least back in the day, Robert Plant.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a huge Led Zeppelin fan. That was, and I still am. And, that was kind of, I don't know, a lot of blueprint for what I like to play still, John Paul Jones. And
Incredible, man.
kind of aggression and and melodic. And, but I did yes, obviously my sister did a wonderful record.
Yeah.
I did a Kennedy Center show honoring Leadbelly. I guess this was maybe in 17 or 16. It's and we were working on arrangements for this tribute show, and my sister and I kind of started off just doing guitar stuff just to kind of figure out what we would do, and we were doing a bunch of Leadbelly songs. And it was funny, I ended up playing guitar on the show with it was just the band was Buddy Miller and I.
Okay.
And, it was thought it was maybe to be more, but then we just ended up being 2 guitars and my sister and Robert. And, what a treat, but totally intimidating,
I was going to say, that's gotta be intimidating playing guitar. The guys play with Jimmy Page.
Oh yeah. And so I'm playing guitar, acoustic guitar, and I played it acoustic guitar, and I switched on 6-string bass for a couple of things that were distorted stuff, and
that's got to be intimidating too for the same reason.
Oh yeah, at the Kennedy Center, and just playing guitar, which much not in my comfort zone.
Yeah,
in terms of people, but I just practiced a lot.
That's good.
Make sure I could get through it, but he's totally sweet. Is and just everything that you would hope he would be.
Yeah.
And has a way of making everybody feel welcome. Like even if you're in a room full of 20 people, he will make sure to make eye contact with everyone in there to make it feel like you're included.
That's really cool. I mean, he probably knows that the reverence that everybody holds him in, I'm sure he's not like arrogant about it, but he's aware of it because he's probably a really bright guy.
He's a super bright guy.
Yeah. And he's got to go out of his way to make sure that he neutralizes any sort of jitters that you have as a result of that, which is very kind of him to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm still reading about Led Zeppelin just because it's constant. If something shows up on the internet about Led Zeppelin or on Instagram, I'm going to read it.
Right.
And just what all they say about it. Him being an intelligent person and being easy to be around. It's all true.
Tom Jones.
Yeah. Oh, Tom Jones. I only did a couple things with him. And boy, that was amazing. Just and I know that you said that a number of people have kind of he's played with millions of people.
He has like a band. He's got like his guys when he comes to America, and then he's got his other guys in England. Yeah.
I did a couple of the little things with him, with the American band, which was Marco Giovino was the band director on that, and Doug Lancio on guitar, and Neil Pauly, and I'm trying to remember, the keyboard player was really good. I'm trying to remember his name.
I had Doug on here a long time ago. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
But we did a one of those. Is it not Night Stage? It was the Chicago show. Not Night Stage. Oh gosh, I'm embarrassed. I can't remember it. But we did a PBS special with him, and it was just fantastic, and my sister actually came in and sang. She was invited to sing on a couple tunes. And she said it was like singing with a tree trunk.
Yeah, everybody says he's like, so his work, he's like, he was a miner or something like that, a coal miner, I think, before he
something, yeah.
Or his father was, he has this like Scottish stock, and he's like physically very strong, and yeah.
And I got that gig because of working with Marco.
Okay.
And we had done some stuff together, and we just always kind of gelled.
That's
really
cool.
well together, and he wanted to know if I could do it, and I said, "Oh, of course." Yeah. And I would have liked I would have liked to have done a lot more. That's right about the time, just a little bit before his wife passed away, and then there was a bit of a hiatus, and then it seems like he's been using his English band since then.
Yeah, he's got like a #1 in England. I think his song is #1. His last record, even, I think it was. I saw some of the guys promoting it, which was cool.
But yeah, it's just so much fun, and professional, and just sweet, and it was it was kind of fun for me to play really aggressively, because that's kind of what it's asking for, and not so much playing a lot of stuff, but just kind of the power.
Double bass again, or is it electric?
Yeah.
That's amazing. I just like You're the only guy that would get hired for that gig to play. I'm serious. Everybody's going to play electric bass.
Yeah. But he's actually had a couple upright guys play too.
Has he? Okay.
But I think so. Yeah, I believe he has.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Did women still throw panties at him, or is that?
They weren't at that show.
It's so funny.
Yeah, we did a show. I guess it was at the Apogee Studios in Los Angeles. It was a radio broadcast there, and there was some talk about it was about the panty thing, but it was. But no, we didn't.
It's a real thing that women love him, because my wife is English and her mom is over in England, and every time you mention Tom Jones, she's like, "Oh, I love Tom." It's a thing. She's almost 90, but he was really a big sex symbol back in the day.
Oh yeah, well, and it's amazing. I mean, like watching, if you go back and you watch those shows, the Tom Jones show in the
I remember that
in the early 70s. How much, you've got, like Ray Charles and Little Richard and Janis Joplin and all these guys that are really great. And then he comes in and he's just as great as them.
Yeah.
And, like you don't expect it, like coming from the host, oh, is he going to be able to keep up? He's like, just sounds amazing every time. It was a really good one with Jerry Lee Lewis as well.
I have to look at that.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to check that one. I'm sure it's on YouTube. Thanks. Shawn Colvin. Now, you guys did a great version of it's really hard to do a good version of songs of this caliber, but you guys did a really good version of Shine On You Crazy Diamond.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's not easy to pull off something that iconic,
Oh yeah. Well, it was probably a bold move.
It sounded great. It really did.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, my favorite part of the original Pink Floyd version is that moment where the time signature changes.
When
it's like there's this really long, I mean, the especially in the last movement of that song, where
it goes to the synthesizer, the keyboard sort of comes in.
Well, it's like gosh, in the final version of it, or I think it's whatever movements they call it. Oops, sorry, my computer just slipped there. It's all in 6 pretty much the entire time, or it goes to a shuffle and then it's back into 6, or that feel, and then suddenly in the last chorus it switches to 4/4, and it's almost like I don't know. To me, it's like one of my favorite moments in music, and they do it in the first one where there's this counterpoint that's going, mainly it's a broken guitar figure in it, and so that's what we started with on that version, and just kind of borrowing. So I wanted to borrow little elements of that to make it work, and I was always a fan of Shawn Colvin, and got to know her a little bit on a couple of Lyle tours where she'd actually opened the shows, and I always kind of bugged her, essentially kind of the same way I bugged Lyle, as if there's ever an opportunity that you need.
That's so cool that you did that, man, and it worked. I mean, it's just, what is it, like that Wayne Gretzky thing? You miss. I'm not really a hockey fan, but you miss 100% of the shots you never take.
Yeah.
There you go, man.
So I kind of bugged her with that, and then when I had this opportunity to make this record, I asked her if she might be interested in doing it, and fortunately she did. And she did a wonderful job. And then later on, I got to play on her All Fall Down record, which I think we recorded that in think it was 2011, and that was Buddy Miller producing. And boy, that was a treat to do that.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of underscore work.
Yeah, I mean, again, kind of it goes in spurts. It was always kind of a thing that I would love to do even more than I do now. It's always, I kind of grew up listening to film scores before I even got into rock music and jazz. I would, the first record that I ever wanted my parents to get for me was the score for Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
And, and they bought me the Star Wars soundtrack, so it was like I was really into John Williams. But I don't know, as someone who was 10 or 11 or before.
Yeah, that's an unusual request for an 11-year-old, Victor. I got to tell you.
but I like the stories it would make.
Yeah,
like we play with Legos, and then I'd hear that in the music, and it would kind of generate a story.
Okay.
And so I always kind of liked listening to soundtracks and instrumental music, just because it didn't always tell you by lyrics of what was going on. You could kind of make up your own story. So I was fascinated with that, and any chance I get to do it, I love to do it.
Well, you've done some heavy, working for Robert Burns. That's how the hell did you get that gig when you're not a guy who does this stuff regularly? That says a lot.
Well, for Ken Burns, it was.
I'm sorry, Ken Burns. I said Robert.
Yeah,
sorry.
No. For Ken Burns, it was actually. I got fortunate that it were placements for songs, so it was an underscore. It was I think it was 3 songs from my first record that he wound up using. He ended up using for the baseball, the 10th inning.
Yeah.
Series.
Man, you're that record. You have a song in there called "Tended."
Yes.
Man, what a great track that is.
Thank you.
Man, I really like that. Man.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was really
that
cool.
Was wanted to feel like there's a little wanted it to feel like Malcolm Young a little bit in the back.
It's a great track, man. It's a real good track. I'm sorry. So then he took 3 of your songs. That's got to be pretty cool. All of a sudden you get a call. Hey, we're going to put these 3. If you're okay with it, we're going to use.
Yeah. Well, usually how it works is that you get clearance from your publisher, or you get a license for it.
Right.
And then, depending on, and it's nice because they also pay you money for it. Yeah. And so it's reuse, and through performing rights agencies, and then if they have to re-up the license, then they pay you again, and so that's a nice thing.
It's great.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Somebody contacted me, I don't know, 2-3 months ago, and they said to me, "Hey, can we license a part of your podcast?"
Oh wow.
I'm like, yeah. And they emailed this to me, and it was that episode I did with Ron Carter. He played on a Gil Scott-Heron record, and it was a really cool story that Ron told. It wasn't like I didn't do anything, but just ask him to tell me about. And they paid me, and I'm like, man, I could see why people like doing this so much, because like, it's one of the few mailbox money types of business. It's one of the few mailbox money that still exists in the music industry now.
Yeah. Like a lot of the times it's just a buyout. And
yeah.
So
you also did work though with, Robert Altman. That's why I got confused. What did you do with him?
Well, this was actually another Lyle connection. It was this was a movie that came out. It was Dr. T and the Women.
Okay.
Which was kind of funny comedy, but just tons and tons of actors as he's kind of was prone to doing, and this was a Lyle connection. So it was Lyle was asked to score the film, and he asked myself and Matt Rawlings to come up. The three of us came up with the cues.
So you did co-writes on that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great, man. And you played.
Yeah, we played. It was mainly it was kind of an unorthodox way to do it, where we just kind of played to picture, as opposed to, or improvised to picture, as opposed to writing certain sections ahead of time. You know, I guess there's no one way to do it, but it was a really amazing process, and which kind of, you know, heightened that I, you know, really wanted to do that some more. That was back in 2000, actually.
That's awesome.
But
that's great.
That's got a lot of. It was really kind of neat, because I mean, like, the very first thing you see of the film, you know, is a black screen, and then I'm playing.
I'm gonna watch this
solo bass to that.
Well, your music is very, I would say your solo stuff is very geared towards licensing.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, that's
it's very good textures in there and stuff. That's a hard question. Top 3 musical experiences you've had.
Wow, that was tough, and I had to write them down. I was trying to look at.
When I give it's funny when I and I didn't notice this, but people have sent in comments over the years, like when you ask someone for top lists, they say, you know, it was a funny email. The guy said, I love how people will like get emotional and upset and talk about sobriety and loss of loved ones. And then you ask them to give you the top 3 CDs. It's like dead silence, and people got to think for quite some time.
Yeah.
Tough question, man. It's a real tough question, especially as much as you've done work-wise. I mean, it's almost like, you know, who's your favorite book or who's your favorite kid almost, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. You know, I mean, it's funny. I was trying to kind of, I mean, and top 3, I couldn't whittle down to 3, but I mean, one thing was that Sundance Composers Lab that I was asked to do. This was back in 2006, where you submit material that you've done, you know, an underscore music or any kind of music that you've done that kind of gives you an identity. And the Sundance Institute, which is the Robert Redford Institute.
From the Sundance Music Festival.
Yeah, exactly. And so I submitted material, and it was funny. I submitted twice, and I was a finalist the first time, and then I submitted the second time. It was funny. The first time I put so much thought into it. I said, okay, what are they going to want to do? And I got it timed down exactly to 15, because I wanted 15 minutes worth of music. And so I was really, really careful, trying to maybe second guess. But I, you know, was a finalist. And then the second time I did, oh, well, maybe I ought to try again. And I put no thought into it. And I just, well, I'll put a bunch of stuff that I like. And then I got it that year, you know, so.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so it was kind of fun. But that was one of the probably most amazing experiences for me, because it really did solidify that I love to write for picture. And it really felt like, okay, I feel like I could be really good at this.
Yeah.
If I were given the opportunity, or, you know, or being able to have the opportunity to do it. And, you know, there was a couple of moments where I was doing the score. It's so fascinating. It's almost like being on Project Runway, because there's 6 fellows, and you're asked to do the same thing, and everybody has a different interpretation, but nobody gets kicked off.
So cool.
You all get to play off of each other's, you know, ideas, or experience the ideas, and it's so interesting to see what people come up with. But there was one moment for me where I was working on this one cue, and I was just like, oh wow, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Oh, so you just, yeah.
You know, it's just like, it kind of gave, you know, I get goosebumps talking about it. That it was just like one of those moments. It's like, oh wow, this is, you know,
that's what you were called for.
Yeah. So that was probably one of the moments. You know, there were, you know, I can think of, there's been some shows that were really special. Like even one of the Peter Rowan shows that I did really early on, like this was like in '92 or something. We played a Telluride bluegrass festival.
Yeah.
And I'd been playing with him in different bands and all this kind of stuff. And it was the first time that that I played with Sam Bush, Jerry Douglas, and then Larry Adamaniuk on drums, and Kester Smith and I. And we played, we didn't rehearse for it. We just did it. And it was like, you know, one of the best rock shows that I'd ever experienced, you know, and it's just like it just like everything kind of came together, and it was like one of my, it had one of those feelings like, okay, I've kind of arrived. You know,
that's nice. That's a good feeling, man.
Yeah.
That's one of the most popular, if not the most popular bluegrass festivals in the States, isn't it? Yeah.
You know, and you know, I can kind of think of some, you know, some Bill Frisell shows that were amazing, and some Lyle shows, and I recently did a show with Robin Ford and Keith Carlock and Bill Evans, that I had kind of one of those same feelings where it was like, wow, this feels like you can't help but do a really good job when you're surrounded by
that guy's pretty high level talent.
Yeah, it's like, it's just like, even if you feel like not confident, they're kind of carrying the weight for you.
Yeah,
the way it all kind of comes together, and it's just like, oh, okay,
yeah.
this is, you know, where your face hurts the next day because you.
That's great. I had Robin on the show, and you know, he's pretty tight to the vest, but he opened up quite a bit. Yeah, I was really happy.
Yeah.
Wow, you've played with some talented people. Low points. What were some of the low points or dark periods you've had to deal with?
No, these are hard too. You know, I mean, like,
the older you get, the longer that list gets.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's you know, there's always uncertainty in this, and I think a lot of the time, you know, in this profession, and a lot of the time, it's hard to enjoy the moment, you know, because you're
preoccupied.
You're preoccupied, yeah, of what's next. So you could be involved with something that's so amazing, or being happy, or just not knowing what's coming next, or if there's a lull period that's happening and you feel like, oh gosh, well, nobody likes me anymore, or just feeling like, okay, you do start to question, or you've played something really terrible, or you don't like the work you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, at the same time, you're kind of like, when you play on something that, you know, that's really, I don't know, music, a lot of the time for me, if it's all encompassing, if you're playing on something that, you know, it's your hobby, it's your life, it's your profession.
It is.
It's hard not to internalize it when
it goes south.
Yeah, when it doesn't feel great, or when it's not all working for you. So, I mean, low points probably when I first moved here and not knowing exactly. I mean, it was exciting at the same time, but there were points for me where it didn't feel like, you know, you were concerned that it wasn't going to pan out. The pandemic, of course, was scary too.
Did you get something out of that? Like, did you know, did you either learn something or make any changes, or, you know, did you find the silver lining in the pandemic for you?
Oh yeah, definitely.
What was that, if you're comfortable?
Yeah, well, just being able to slow down, and, you know, you're always kind of worried that, okay, well, this is where it all falls out and you're never going to come back to it again, you know. And I loved being home, you know.
Yeah, that's the number one thing every musician that travels is number one.
Yeah.
In fact, so many guys have said, some on the air, some off the air, man, I know I need to go back out. I don't want to. I've really enjoyed, you know, my wife, my kids, my privacy, fill in the blank, you know, any number of reasons.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think there's all of us that feel too. I don't know. And silver lining, you know, is just like, well, I'm still here. We survived it.
Yeah.
You know, we're not completely out of it, but it's looking good.
Yeah.
And and you know, it really did give me time to kind of work on other stuff. And right now, um, it's so busy right now with work,
Good.
which has been great. You know,
Yeah.
like it went from like 5 miles an hour to 300 miles an hour.
Right.
It feels like it did for me in the 90s.
That's
you know,
great.
when it was so busy back then. But right now it's been great.
That's wonderful.
So I know, yeah. So that, I mean, that there was maybe some lows or some scariness. It was great the first 3 months, I thought, and then it started like when it was like,
When you realize that this shit is not coming back.
yeah, it's not coming back for a while, and
Yeah.
so that was a little scary, and there were some moments where it's just like, you know, where you get mad at everything, and
Yeah.
if you're really short, and you know, trying to figure out, okay, if this doesn't come back, what's next?
Well, you know what? And you guys got hit the worst as far as, you know, interruption of production of business.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's still not, you know, it's mostly coming back now, but it's still not, you know, in different places, it's hit or miss.
Yeah.
You know, but you guys by far got hit the worst.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is not meant to be political, but whether it's here or in other countries, you know, musicians are solo entrepreneurs basically.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of places there was no unemployment for people. And I mean, that's not, you know, that was sad for, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it was unfortunate. It shouldn't have been that way, but I'm glad everybody's back, you know, most part is coming back now.
Yeah.
Tell me one or two things you did that were out of your comfort zone at the time, but in hindsight, they turn out to be good moves.
Well, I think, you know, kind of like, you know, kind of rising to the occasion of either something that's hard or you feel like it isn't something you can do. You know, just kind of what we were talking about, making sure that there's a college try to have something, you know, kind of like approaching people that you want to do something and making it known whether or not the outcome is what you want, you know, to not have regrets of not trying.
Hey, while we're at it, who do you want to play? Who's on your list, man? Let's put it out there right now.
Oh gosh.
Let's put it out to the universe this minute.
Well, yeah, let's see. You know, it's funny. I looked at that too, you know, like, you know, heroes that I'd like to play with, you know, of course, David Gilmour.
Oh my God.
Yeah. David Gilmour. Always, you know, I'm a classic rock guy, you know, like Paul Rodgers, Joe Walsh. Oh gosh, who else did I write?
I had his bass play, you know, he's played with Guy Pratt for like 20
Oh wow.
So I had Guy on the show, and Gilmour's my hero, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and I said, and I had Steve DeSlanislow on, that's his drummer. And I said to Guy, I said, look, I'm sure this is not happening, and I'm not asking you to put me in touch with him, but is there any way I would ever get Gilmour on the show? He just looked at me and goes, no.
Yeah.
No, like a definitive no. But you know, he doesn't need me to promote his records, and he's quiet. He's never talking about himself and stuff like that. But I'm with you, man. He's just amazing.
Yeah. And of course, Jimmy Page and Stevie Wonder, and then Thomas Newman is another one who's the film composer.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, like you know, American Beauty, Shawshank Redemption, the player, and you know, just he does this thing with you know, where I've met a couple of people that have worked with him. I actually met Thomas Newman years ago, but I mean, essentially they kind of were doing the same type of thing where they would play to picture sometimes, and it was like a rock band that they all kind of do, you know, their thing, and I would love to be involved on one of those.
All right, so Hollywood producers looking for, or music directors looking for good music guys to do sync licensing. Here's your man. Putting it out there, right? See if the universe takes us up. This is an unfair question in a way, but who favorite musicians you've enjoyed playing with? Is probably so many.
Oh gosh, it's there are a lot. Naturally as a bass player, you kind of,
Drummers.
the drummer, yeah. It's been wonderful to to be able to work with Russ Kunkel for so long, and Matt Chamberlain and Steve Jordan and Jim Keltner. I had my first Steve Gadd experience just recently. Where
Did you? On what?
Well, it was this James Taylor record, the American Standard record that came out last year. But I'd always wanted to work with Steve Gadd, but I haven't been in the room with him. I got to overdub to him.
Okay.
But that was a real treat. And then people like Dean Parks and Bill Frisell and Jim Oblon has been, which I'm grateful for him suggesting that I be on your show. He's just so much fun because it's a same type of deal where you kind of just know what to do.
With Oblon? Yeah, he's a super talented guy.
You just play. And I remember the first couple of times playing with him, he was kind of mysterious. And and then you get to know him, and he's like one of the sweetest guys in the world.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah. And I remember coming playing, he says, "Oh, you'll know what to do." He says, "We won't rehearse for it." And, and he gets this notebook, and it's got, just some chords written on there. And it's just, and he says, "Okay, number 17, we play that one." And he starts, and, and he'll make like one little nod like that if we're going to the, if we're going to repeat a section, or, or if we're going to go to the bridge here. And just somehow, exactly what to do, and it's
cool.
And I think just because he's a drummer as well, and it's usually Pete Abbott, great drummer too, that we do the trio with. The combination of, essentially two drummers, except one of them's playing guitar. It's just hard. It's hard not to feel great.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a really good historian. Jim's knowledge of just all kinds of music.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll ask him a name, like an obscure name, and go, "Oh yeah, he cut this and this," and he originally started in swing. I mean, he's like encyclopedic on his memory music, man.
Yeah, and we really put the Pete Abbott to sleep when we get on to talking about gear and.
I got Pete coming on here like next week or 2 weeks or something like that. So
great.
I'll ask him some questions about that.
He's a good sport about it, but I can tell it may not be.
What's the last thing you listened to musically?
Oh gosh. I don't know. I'm always listening. Yesterday, which was I still love the Twin Peaks soundtrack.
Okay.
The old TV show.
Yep.
Laura Palmer theme is one that I wanted to do with my group a bunch of times, but it's almost cliche, but it's still cool.
Yeah. Hey, you're a musician. Do what you want.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a good one. Tell me, most embarrassing or funniest thing that's happened to you in the studio or on stage?
Well, funny haha would be, it was another Peter Rowan show early on. We were playing, oh gosh, it was it was Chico, California.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this really strange venue. It was like a barn. And we were playing, I remember the song, it was Howling at the Moon, which was this crazy song with a bunch of 2/4 bars in it. And it was just a trio, and it was great. And I remember we stopped the song, and there was this random guy who was wearing a Dr. Seuss hat, and he had his pants down.
Like listen, everyone.
Yeah, total full frontal.
Like his pants were down, like in the audience.
Were down, underwear too. Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and walked up and bluttered, mumbled something on the microphone and then walked off. And just totally weird, random thing that it was just like the show was kind of went a different direction. After
you
that.
got to wonder how much booze you got to drink to get to that stage, man, where like you're thinking that's cool or normal. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
Yeah, that's weird. Holy smokes. But you know what? It reminds me, I grew up in New York City, and I remember in the 70s when the city was really bad, I went down to this place called the Coliseum, which is no longer there. It was on 59th Street.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a college fair, and it was dead of winter. And I remember, and it was totally normal. We're looking for a parking spot, tons of traffic, of course. And this homeless guy just comes and pulls his pants down and moves his bowels. It takes a dump basically, right?
Oh, gosh.
Like, but it was New York in the 70s. It wasn't even like, oh, that's really weird. It was just like, oh, you know,
yeah.
Yeah, I guess this is a thing, man. I don't know. I've never.
Yeah, I don't know.
I usually keep my pants on.
That was really strange, that one.
That's really weird. Give me your top 3 desert island discs just for this minute.
Okay. Well, I think it would be the American Beauty soundtrack. Oscar Peterson, Night Train. And then, gosh, see, that's tough. It's 3. Either Physical Graffiti or House of the Holy. And if I have to,
interesting.
If I have to put another one, it would be AC/DC Powerage.
Now that's interesting that of the 2 Zeppelin albums you picked, Physical Graffiti or Houses, they don't come up very much. Physical Graffiti once in a while never come, but Houses never comes up.
Oh, wow. Well, I think that's because of No Quarter in the Rain song.
That is such a good, I mean, live No Quarter is like nothing.
Oh, that's well, if I have to pick a desert island recording, just one, that's like the top one is the solo section of No Quarter from it's like, to me, it's probably my favorite guitar solo of all time.
It's just amazing, man.
Yeah.
It's so freaking cool. I'm going to check. I've started listening to Oscar Peterson recently. I'm going to check that, make sure I check out that record. Night Train. Viktor, tell me 1 or 2 changes you've made or 1 or 2 things that you've done that have had the biggest impact on your life. Could be musically, professionally, personally, personal growth, spiritually, anything that changed your life.
See, I left that one blank because I wasn't sure how to answer.
Well, now I'm glad I asked you. That's good.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, I don't know. You know, I mean, I think it was always kind of ingrained in I think my parents always kind of did a good job with the both of us, you know, in terms of being focused, but also not doing stupid stuff.
Yeah.
You know, not getting off, or getting off the rails in some ways. I think, I mean, changes that I've made.
Excuse me.
I don't know. You know, when you get to a certain age, you get a little more mellow, and some things are not quite as important as they were. You know, especially after having kids and getting married. You know, like some of the drive that I have in terms of going after goals aren't quite as, you know. But I do get excited when there's a new chapter happening. I don't know, and being pretty, I mean, I think maybe I was, it's interesting being in the region. This may be I don't know if I'm answering this very well, being, you know, from Illinois, where pretty much people are pretty direct, you know, like you kind of know what you have with people, you know, kind of right off the bat. You can start a conversation, it's friendly, but it's usually to the point, and there isn't a whole lot of additional paragraphs of how you're doing, you know. And some of that, when I moved here, maybe was kind of perceived as maybe not as polite.
Interesting. I didn't know that well, I guess would be Chicago's, the influence of the big city of Chicago maybe on, was that it? I didn't realize, because the only place I've ever heard that from is New York. And then maybe it's because that's where I was from. So everybody would tell me that. I didn't realize it. Yeah.
But it was funny when I don't, and New Yorkers get a bad.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Yeah.
But
and some of it's deserved and some of it's not.
Yeah. But I always find that it's kind of like in some ways you can that it's that directness is kind of it's okay
if you deliver it like not confrontationally. Most people, I have found most people find it like it's I have this expression, don't piss on my back and tell me it's raining.
Yeah.
I mean, just like, I'm 57, man. Just say whatever the hell you want to say. My feelings are not going to be hurt. I promise. And it's
yeah. Well, I'm trying to think if this is if that's
so coming to Nashville. Because Nashville's a kind of, you got to navigate around that a little bit.
Maybe a little bit. I mean, and which I really like. I really do like a lot of the politeness and etiquette and that it so and maybe being careful to pick your words well, as opposed to saying, well, if you don't like something, you don't just flat out say, well, that sucks, or I don't like that. You have to be maybe a little more careful with people in the rooms that you don't offend somebody.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, maybe that's grown, but I was thinking about something else at the same time that I thought might better answer that question. Boy, things that I found in the personal growth. Personal growth. I guess personal growth. As I've gotten older, I've kind of been able to navigate through situations like professionally, just watching what other people do, and trying to learn what's best as to kind of be in the room in the best way, not be too abrasive, maybe, but not let things go the wrong way.
Sure.
Anything, or not to be perceived as not caring.
Did you have a role model for that in Nashville? Not necessarily someone who worked with you, but someone who you observed, even that you learned stuff from.
Boy, I had trouble thinking of this one.
No, that's not a question. That's just a follow-up on your response.
I don't know. It's funny. I like, there's certain producers that I've liked watching how they handle a room and how they can get their point across and be the one in charge, but at the same time not offend anybody.
Yeah. Who can like?
Well, I really like Kyle Lenning a lot, and where he's like one of the few that will actually sit on the floor with the musicians in the room with a separate headphone box and kind of talk that way, as opposed to the
behind the glass.
Yeah. So you really just feel like you're really part of it. And he's a great musician too. So there's kind of an understanding.
Yeah.
Where it sort of kind of feels that way, but at the same time he'll be firm with saying, "Oh, nah, we're not going to do that." Yeah. And he does it in a fun way that doesn't offend anybody, or you
could be definitive without being dismissive, and it does take a certain skill set, I think.
Yeah, I've enjoyed watching that, and I guess maybe what I hope to do when I'm producing something, or if I feel like I have an opinion to bring, that I can do it in a way that tiptoes a little bit, but gets the point across, what you think is the best way to go,
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah, I don't know if I answered.
No, that's an important. I've learned that from my kids, to be honest with you, because you don't want to just be like, no, when they
Yeah,
have an idea, and then they're not going to come to you with any ideas anymore, or something
yeah,
like that. I've tried to learn a lot of that from my kids.
yeah.
Don't know if I have, but I've tried to learn. I've tried.
Okay.
Tell me something that you want that you don't have now.
Oh gosh.
Doesn't
It's
have to be a thing. Could be, a state of mind, a state of being,
oh,
or.
well, I guess if it were, I guess I could answer it both ways. Both the thing I love, I'm a bit of a gear junkie, so there's always something like I get one thing and then I wanted something else,
Right.
immediately. Like I was totally fixated on getting one of those Boss tone benders that just came out. And I got
Okay.
that,
Right.
and now I'm like, okay, what's next?
So did you get one?
I did get one, and
That's the one, the
Jim
fuzz, the fuzz one is supposed to. Yeah. Right.
supposed to sound like Led Zeppelin one,
Right.
and
There's one I don't know how I got it, but I put it on my reverb. It's called the Mk2 Tone Bender. Is that a good one?
well, there's a bunch of different versions. It's the Mk2 Tone Bender. Like if you get a real one, it's astronomical one. There's one that it's funny. Jim and Oblon and I have been bouncing off, and he says, "Oh yeah, if you find this one, this is a good one." And he's got a really great one, which
From England, I think he got it.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's just like and I asked him to play that on a thing that I'm producing right now, and it was just like when I heard the sound, it's just like, oh wow, that's
I want one.
yeah, I want one. So I've been so I don't know if it's as good as the one he has, but it's kind of scratching the itch a little bit.
Cool.
And I'm a car nut. I'd like to have I've got an old 66 VW. I've always wanted to always more is more.
I hear you.
But I mean, I guess also, if I have, if I go to the dark side and want something, like what in life, what I'd like, it's nice when there's less stress. And I think, that it is, the profession that we are in as musicians, you can never completely relax.
Yeah.
I think that would be one thing that would be nice.
Yeah.
And I think, to think about, I always envision, okay, what will retirement feel like? Does that ever happen?
Yeah.
Hopefully you save enough money to be able to be in a position of that. But at the same time, can you really ever retire?
Can you do nothing? I mean, yeah, I think
I don't think I could do nothing.
Yeah, I definitely can't do nothing.
But yeah, less stress, less wondering what's next would be peace of mind. That would be good.
The best description of that, I had Danny Korchmar here not too long ago, and he said, "You always think this is your last gig."
Oh gosh, completely.
Yeah. He said, no matter what's going on. And he goes, and sometimes it is your last gig for a while, but you're always thinking, this is my last gig.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the most accurate, because I've heard this similar thing from so many people.
Mm-hmm.
Best decision you ever made?
Oh gosh. Well, I think getting married.
I thought you were going to say getting the tone bender.
Yes, getting the tone bender and getting married. No, it's meeting my wife, and we've been married for 21 years. And,
oh, cool! Congratulations.
Yeah. And that's good.
Well, you're smiling when you're saying it, so that's good.
Yeah.
What do you like most about yourself?
Well, I would say, I think I'm pretty easy to get along with. I'm a notorious INFJ. As far as
on that, I don't know that test.
Okay, yeah, the Myers-Briggs.
Okay.
I'm extremely introverted.
Okay.
So,
really?
Well, yeah. I mean, like as well as like one-on-one, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But a lot of groups, I'm not. So I can be kind of perceived as maybe, I don't know, I mean, aloof or not as friendly as I could be, but it's just because it's
not your comfort zone.
Yeah, I'm not a big extrovert, and my wife is a big extrovert. So, it's funny, when we had our tests, I was really, really on the extreme side of introvert, and she's on the extreme side of extrovert.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's good. So it's like a yin and yang.
Yeah,
yin and yang. Yeah.
But I think I think I'm easy to. I think I'm a good listener. I think I'm aware of I don't know how to read. I don't know, to kind of feel a temperature in a room with people, and I hope to think that I'm thought of as a nice person.
Well, I think that skill set, reading a room, every successful session player has a component of that, because you have to, you have to know who's the Indians, who's the chief, who's not the chief but thinks he or she is the chief, that kind of stuff. You got to read that pretty early on, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something or someone you miss from your childhood?
Oh gosh, I mean, it's like something, or I don't know. I really did love growing up where I grew up.
In Champaign.
Champaign, yeah. I think it just so not that it would necessarily be the same if I went back there. I think I missed that. I missed that time. I missed some of those friends.
Yeah.
Some of that life at that time period, disappearing for hours on your bike, and that, we all miss our childhood to a certain degree, but
sure,
the
lack of responsibility that you had.
Yeah. Or
when you have kids, it's my kids are grown for the most part, but it was heavy, man.
Yeah. We have 3.
So, and me too. And we have people don't realize 3 is not 50% more work than 2. It's like some exponential figure of 2. Yeah. It's not like, you'd wish it was 50% more work than 2.
Yeah. I always thought the jump from 1 to 2 was like going 1 to 5.
It's a lot of work, man. 3 kids is a lot. I mean, like I said, they're grown, so I'm close to all of them, but it was a lot of work, and my wife helped together.
But also the time period. I mean, I guess I could not, if I wanted not to have an iPhone, I could not to have one. But the expectation, the lifestyle that was before you, you couldn't, if you were home, if you could pick up the phone, you were reachable if you were home.
Yeah.
So that was kind of nice that time period.
Happiest moment or happiest time in your life?
Gosh, that's happiest time. I really did. Again, there was a happy time where it was the balance, going back to being in finance and working for my dad's real estate company and then doing music at the same time was such a nice balance, because it didn't shift one way or the other. I would go work for my dad at the real estate office, and then I would play gigs that I wanted to, and I would go home, and I couldn't wait to, write music and all that kind of stuff. That it wasn't juggling all of the business angle of the professional musician versus the not hobbyist but passionate musician.
Totally get that.
I thought the balance of that, I can understand why people hire managers and, just to kind of alleviate you from having all the responsibility of trying to juggle this.
Yeah.
But being the business end of music isn't always fun, or the hustle.
Yeah.
That part isn't my favorite. If I could just play and then part, handle all the other stuff, that would. So I enjoy that time period.
What did your dad do? Was he a broker?
He did some, but then invested. He had invested. This was the 70s, so it was a good time to invest. And we were in a university town, so it was primarily campus rentals, and you could buy
those
a
are great.
compact, and not, you could buy stuff for very little, or very little down at the time period. So they did that, and
Good for him.
Went to other.
Yeah, it's a good business, student rentals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's the most important thing he taught you?
Well, it's funny. I always felt he was great with dealing with difficult situations, like if it were unhappy tenants or people that were. He's from Germany originally, taught German for a while, and then got his PhD in psychology with dissertation in juvenile delinquency.
Wow.
And
that's a lot of studying, a lot of
there's
reading.
a lot of stuff. Yeah. I always thought he was so good at being the diplomat for something that could go a bad way, or something that was handling people that were difficult or different personalities. And it always seemed like he was always calming, and things worked out no matter what it was. Even though, behind the scenes, he could be very nervous about it, but how he handled the situation was always great, I thought.
That's cool.
He was always well liked. And
how about your mom? Most important thing she taught you?
Well, I think that's where she, both for my sister and I, it's kind of like doing your best work at all times, and making it, I think it's that college try thing. She's very graphic, she's a very talented artist, and if she were doing something for like a school flyer, that would only be distributed to 20 people, she'd treat it as if it were going to be the cover of Time magazine.
Yeah.
So like always, it was always your best work.
So work ethic as well.
Yeah. Probably, and the creativity came from a lot from her.
You mentioned cars. Any other hobbies outside of music?
Oh gosh, yeah, cars. I mean, I've been a big VW guy forever. I've had a number of, like, the one that's on my first album cover is the 66, which we still own.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Let me look at that right now. I was wondering if that was your place. I said, it must be because he's got his bass in there. And
yeah, that's our old house. We moved around the corner, but that was
and those were your dogs, I'm assuming.
Yeah, they're gone now too.
Yeah.
But,
isn't that horrible, man? I was thinking about it today. I've had to put down a lot of animals. That's like a horrible thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just awful. It's like it rips through you, man.
Mm-hmm.
Even years later. So cars, Volkswagen, pets.
Photography, I like taking pictures. Yeah, but I'm trying to think.
What kind of photography do you like?
Well, I mean, really, I always kind of, I always love taking pictures of instruments. That's something, it's, or just little angles of stuff that's kind of, I don't know, I always like to take a little part of that so you can kind of see the beauty of like maybe a knob, or a certain angle of something where it's not the whole thing, but it's just something that, oh, okay, here are the possibilities connected with that little piece of gear.
Yeah.
Or, it's seldom like the whole thing.
Do you have like a website with them or anything?
Well, a lot of the stuff I see to Instagram and
okay.
And, so it's usually up there,
Okay.
But,
yeah,
I don't like taking lots of pictures of myself doing stuff. I just like showing that something, if there's a story connected with it.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
I love photography.
Yeah.
Just a couple more questions. Toughest decision you've had to make, or most difficult thing you've had to do?
Oh, wow. Was that one that's another one that I couldn't answer very easily.
Somebody one time filled it out and sent it back to me. And I said, hey, this is nice of you, but this is not a test. Like, I'm not going to grade this, man. Like, this is.
Yeah. I don't know. I think, I mean, there's certain things that lead you to a place. At one point, I think we decided we got really serious about moving to Los Angeles because at the time I was getting a lot of work out there. It seemed like this was, in the early 2000s, late 90s, where, the music business was so strong still. And so a lot of the time I was flown out to Los Angeles on, some record date with a big budget, and, you getting met at the airport with a guy who's going to give you your rental car, and, you're flying stuff rocket cargo. So it was all very glamorous, and there was an allure of moving out there, and some of the music, especially trying to pursue the more of the film score angle, and being on more rock and roll projects and that kind of stuff. And
sure.
We had kind of we had taken a trip out there to see what it would feel like if we had nothing going on. Like, what does it feel like? Everything's on our own dime, and there's not a great gig, and there's not a rental car that's being provided for. And
that's a smart way to do it, man. If you like it but if you like it under those terms and conditions, it's worth pursuing.
Yeah. And so we went out there, and it wasn't quite as inviting. And at that point we had 2 kids, and it just felt like it was, we liked the size of our house. And
I was going to say it's 5 times the price of Nash at that time. At that time. Yeah.
And so that was a little bit of a challenge to decide on whether or not to kind of go that route musically, which in sometimes, would have been really great, especially to build on the film score thing, which has still been kind of tough to do here.
Yeah.
It's getting better, but it's not your go-to. Even the when the Nashville TV show was on, the Q music stuff was still down in Los Angeles.
It was.
Yeah, even though the all the songs were done here, but still the underscore stuff was still done in Los Angeles.
Okay.
So that was kind of a tough decision, and I feel for the most part that it was still the right way to go. All our friends are here, and our families here, and our kids know it here, but some of the musical opportunities would have been pretty cool.
Yeah,
get going there.
But you decided not to, because you figured in the dark times what you have is better the devil known than the devil unknown, sort of.
Yeah, I remember we came back from that trip, and I remember pulling into our street, and it was so calm, and I was like, maybe it's okay what we have going on here. And so, and really it has been good. Yeah.
And last question, most important lesson life has taught you?
Most important life is, well, it's interesting. I mean, I also about having kids, and and I always knew it would be important to have kids. I always wanted to have children, and how instantaneous it was once I did have children. The tolerance for people changed, and being sympathetic to certain situations versus maybe not being as sympathetic before. Just like a classic example of being on an airplane and you hear some kid screaming, and prior to having kids, you're going, well, why can't that kid just be quiet?
Shut up. Yeah.
Shut up. And then when after you have kids, then you kind of go, oh wow, what's wrong with the kid, and what's wrong with the parents for not being able to figure out why? And to me, when I hear a kid that's I don't even hear it anymore. or it doesn't
Yeah.
bother me. It's just, oh, okay, this is a difficult situation. Or dealing with somebody that you didn't get a great first impression with, like always, like, oh, I can't stand that person. Well, then you think about it. Well, they're still somebody's kid, or understanding that, okay, it's maybe the parents' fault that made him that person a certain way too. So being maybe with a little more compassionate of the makeup of people in general, really changed, I think, once having
It's cool, man. I'm going to tell people where to find you, but any final words of wisdom before that?
I love this quote, and I don't know if I have mutilated it over time, but George Massenburg, the amazing producer, engineer, inventor, he always said something that's kind of great. Don't strive for perfection, strive for excellence. And something perfect isn't necessarily the best it is. And the flaws that in music or in life are the things that make things really excellent.
Totally.
It's always interesting to watch. Probably a lot of people watch the Rick Beato, things, which a lot of it is really interesting, and how much he talks about how the if you tune everything or quantize everything, it really does take the life out of, some of my favorite music out there. Definitely has flaws and, isn't in tune, isn't in time. And
does it even matter if it feels good?
Matter. Yeah.
Who cares? Who pays attention to that if it feels good?
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I want to thank you very much for everything. It was really nice talking to you. I'm really glad we got to finally connect. I appreciate you sharing everything. I want to tell people where they could find you. So Viktor Krauss's website is viktorkrauss.com. He spells his name with a K, Viktor, and Krauss with 2 S's. Viktor's available. And just to qualify this, I ask everybody, what can I promote? Nobody comes on here and says, hey, Craig, I want to promote this. So I just want to make that statement because sometimes musicians feel awkward. So this is me wanting to sort of pay it forward if there is such a thing. Anyway, first of all, I would encourage everybody to check out Viktor's music. If not with playing with others, and his catalog is deep, you can go on his website or on allmusic.com, but go on wherever I listen to music on Apple, but Apple, Spotify, go download his two albums and his 2 EPs. Man, this is some beautiful stuff. This guy knows how to create and write really good music. And I can see you being a really good fit with Bill Frisell, actually, because your sensibility is not much, your range and your awareness musically is pretty compatible with his, now that I think about it. Yeah. So he's got 2 great records. If you only have time to listen to one thing, listen to his second album. It's just called 2, Viktor Krauss 2. He's available if you're interested in working with him and having him play on your record. He's got a studio there, which he's recording from here. It's called Split Window Studios. And so he's available to do tracks, and he does this all day long on people's records. If you go to viktorkrauss.com, again, Viktor Krauss with 2 S's, there's a contact thing there, and you just go down the email message and email him there. He is also available on a limited basis for lessons, and I'll tell you what that basis is. First of all, you got to be an intermediate bass player, and really, if you're interested in finding out how he does a certain thing, or his philosophy about how he approaches bass, or how he approaches a particular type of music, whether it's one of his own records, one of the albums he's played as a sideman on, or how he conceptualizes things for licensing to pictures, same thing, he's available for that. Go to viktorkrauss.com and click on the contact form. And also you can find him on Instagram and Facebook. So you could follow him or like him on Instagram. I don't know how the hell it goes. Follow him. You think I just have one follower, or I just got in. Anyway, you know how to do this. Instagram and Facebook. Anything else that I forgot or that you'd like to mention?
Boy, that was nicely done. I can't think of anything.
All good, man. Well, thank you for everything. Hang on a second. We'll wrap up. Really appreciate your time. I'm glad we got to connect. And hopefully I'll see you down on tour here or something like that.
Yeah, that would be great.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Thanks very much to Viktor Krauss. Check him out online, Viktor Krauss with 2 S's.com. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar or your bass, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I am out. Viktor, thanks for everything, brother.
Thank you.